One of the things that I really focus on for people is if you're not drinking enough water right now, you want to slowly increase. So the best formula that I've seen is you basically take your body weight in pounds and you divide it in two, and that will give you how many ounces of water you should drink per day. So for example, if I'm roughly 200 pounds, that would be 100 ounces. So for me, that is almost, it's a little over 3 liters per day. So if you're 200 pounds, it's approximately just a little bit over 3 liters. If you're 150 pounds, it would be a little bit more than 2 liters. Now, for some people, I have patients, they only drink literally like 2 glasses of water a day, never mind 2 liters of water. So one of the things you want to do early in the morning, I've said this before too, but the very first thing you should do once you're up is to have a big glass of water. So I try and hydrate first thing in the morning. Some of my kids are better at this than others, but it's a really good habit. So you wake up, get your body rehydrated because you've been breathing through the night. So you're expelling a lot of water that way. So you want to rehydrate first thing in the morning. So that helps. If you know how much that you need, often too, if we're in the 2 to 3 liter range per day, it's helpful if you have something like a liter water bottle or something that's like 750 mils and you know you have to fill that up, say 3 times or 4 times. It's much easier to count that than it is to count actual glasses. So that would be my other tip, is get a good container, figure out how many milliliters or liters are in that, and then decide, okay, I need to fill that up twice today or 3 times today. Okay. Now, one of the things that we often talk about in other parts of the program is if we're changing our carbohydrate intake, you do have to adapt your electrolytes to balance any changes that you're making in your carbohydrates. So if you're doing carbohydrate restriction, you do want to add things like electrolytes and or sea salt throughout your day. Also, if you're doing different types of fasting, I find this really does help keep your body hydrated. And a lot of times when people are doing different types of fasting, if they're new to it, it's one of the things that they overlook. So we talk about that in other parts of this program, but you really want to make sure if you're changing your carbohydrate restriction, or even if you're doing a short intermittent fast, that you do have some type of electrolyte or sea salt in with your water. It keeps you hydrated. Now, we've said this too, is that we really have to pay attention to all the areas that these really junk carbs or the sugar gets into our body. And even natural fruit juices, things like that, we really recommend you limit them. Not because it affects the hydration as much as it's the extra sugar that gets into your body. So really, especially with kids, you want to make sure that you have juice consumption like nil or to a minimum. If you do have a little tiny bit, make sure you're diluting it down, because those are really potent sources for kids, especially, their bodies are small and we're giving them these big intakes of sugar, and how that affects their brain and their bodies can really affect their performance throughout the day, their concentration at school, all those types of things. So for yourself, if you're an adult, you want to really limit, all the sodas, even diet soda. Like, it's one of those things that it is not a healthy replacement. So when you're using things like artificial sweeteners, they're not really safe to use in large quantities. So you want to avoid all soda. Make sure that you're not using diet soda as a replacement. Make sure you're not drinking a lot of juice, because it's excess sugar that you don't need. And if you do have small amounts of it, I would dilute it. But using something like, lemon in your water or lime in your water is fine. It's recommended in the morning. That's no problem. But you want to make sure you don't have a habit of just having a lot of fruit juice around. And then the other thing you want to make sure is if, you're drinking, say you're on a weekend, you're at dinner, any alcohol consumption that you have, you want to go 1 for 1. So if you have a glass of wine, have a glass of water. I find it's one of the things that will affect people's sleep cycles too. So you want to make sure if you do consume some alcohol that you're balancing it out with water. And really, we don't recommend you have a high caffeine intake. So if you do have, a cup of coffee, then I would always have a cup of water after it and try and balance that out through the day. So, your caffeine intake will also affect your overall hydration level. So you want to make sure if you are using caffeinated beverages that you do add some additional water to counterbalance the dehydration effects of that. So these are some really good tips. It's often overlooked. People are like, yeah, you know, I drink enough water, but really pay attention to it. So again, to review, you're going to take your body weight in pounds, divided in two. That's how many ounces you should have. So if you're 150 pounds, you're going to be over 2 liters. If you're 200 pounds, you're going to be over 3 liters. So you can use that as a guideline, and make sure you're doing it first thing in the morning. Get your body hydrated first thing. That's a great way to start your day.